Okay, I'm going to start. So just an introduction, my name is Sandiso. I am the founder of COOi Studios, an open innovation lab that helps corporates solve business problems using exponential technologies through our startup partners. We're hosting this panel called Digital Platforms. It'll be primarily presented by people that have actually done the work already on the ground, that have developed platforms, and those speakers are Rapelang, Lars, and Gazi, as you can see on the presentation. We are directing this platform to mostly large enterprises, as those are the people that are probably straggling behind around the platform economy. And we're hoping that the startups can sort of demystify some of the questions that you have, the challenges that you're having, and have them share their experiences. And hopefully you can be more open to trying this uncertain terrain of the platform economy. So to begin, I just want to set some house rules. So we want this to be an interactive session. As you can see, you have access to the question and answer. Please try and keep the Q&A, the question and answers in the Q&A box. And if you've got comments or anything you'd want to share, please use the chat window for that. It just helps us when we want to answer the questions, that we're not digging through comments, but rather we actually focus on asking real questions. But please feel free to chime in via the chat window at any point, and also you may ask questions. The structure of the session is that each speaker will speak for about 10 minutes, and then there'll be a 5-minute Q&A. They will respond to the questions that you have put in the box. So please do post your questions as they're speaking. So by the time that they finish, we've got a whole lot of questions that they can actually respond to. I will try and summarize the questions on your behalf and just pose that to the panelists themselves. And then the last part is that this other point is that we're actually going to share the slides post the course. So don't worry about scribbling or taking photos of it. We will definitely share the panelist slides thereafter. And then the other thing is that the session is being recorded as well. So in the event that you need to drop at some point, you can still just catch up on it at a later stage. So yeah, and I just wanted to set the context around why we're doing this. So we were actually, before COVID-19 took place, we're in the process of doing a moonshot program, which is basically inviting corporates to give us some business problems, and then we go into the market and we find relevant startups that can solve it. So a lot of the corporates that are participating in moonshots, a lot of them was about they want to develop platforms. And so many clients feel that if they were to implement a platform, whether it be an internal one for learning or whether it be an external one for their customers, they feel like they can solve some of their business problems. But unfortunately, with platform economy, it's a very different business model to traditional business. So platforms typically don't make money for the first 5 years or 10 years. A good example of that is Amazon. And so it becomes very difficult to actually develop platforms in large enterprises. And so we wanted to just share some of the learnings that startups have had around building their platforms, and how difficult and also just some opportunities that they've realized along the way, how they've pivoted to something else as well in the process. So I guess that the driver for organizations to have a platform is around, responding to the market pressures, the uncertainty. And also just the other point is that platforms offer exponential growth. They have very low cost because they don't require much assets, but there's also obviously other expenses that come in that probably replace the asset bucket, but it's not as expensive as other business capital investments would demand. And then around how the platform economy is predicted to be actually worth $60 trillion by 2025. But I guess the reason why we're having this conversation is because only 3% of large enterprises are actually actively implementing digital platforms. So yeah, that's basically the context and why we're having this conversation that I wanted to set up front. So I'm going to hand over to Rapelang to start off the show, and then then the other speakers will follow as well. So yeah, Rapelang, over to you. I'm going to stop sharing now.
Sure. Hi everyone. Just let me switch over and share my screen. Okay. Let me know once it's shared.
It's
Doesn't
shared.
seem to allow me. Is it
It's
shared?
shared, but not in presentation format. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Great. So I will give you a sort of a glimpse of sort of the journey that we've traveled or I've traveled in the tech space. The platform I'll be speaking to specifically is what we've built within Rekindle Learning. And essentially what we were aiming to do here was to provide a platform that empowers people to continuously learn and adapt to the changes at work, whether they are in compliance or sales, or whether they're university students, by pushing a concept of microlearning. And in terms of what the platform actually entails, we've got a mobile platform that has got Android, iOS apps for the end users, as well as an entire back end that allows a customer to curate their own content, manage their own users, and of course, pull a lot of statistics and reporting. And the analytics component is a key capability going forward, as more and more companies want more personalized learning, more AI-driven learning instructions and guidance. So that's certainly a big area for us, and having a platform with all the data that we've collected with our clients over the years is going to become more and more valuable over time. In terms of the journey that we took coming to this point, first, when I started about 4 or 5 years ago, I initially licensed an existing platform from a European company to get going. And the reason I did that is that I really appreciate, having been in my first startup, that it takes quite a while to really understand what the customer really wants. And I found something that was similar enough to what I needed to get going and allow me to get to market immediately, and without having to do the year or two of R&D to get a commercially stable product. While it's very quick and easy to do, a 3-month alpha or beta version, I find providing an enterprise level commercially stable solution does take a while to stabilize. And the reason then, after about 2 or 3 years of using the license platform, we then decided to build our own platform, is now we had gained the market understanding that I was really looking for before. And the way I like to think about it in terms of deciding whether you need to build a platform or not is to ask yourself, what are the things, in respect of whatever service or product you're offering your clients, what are the things that your customer really, really cares about? And in our context, it was around ease of use, access to relevant content, ease of use, really speaking to, is it mobile specific and a mobile dedicated experience, not just web that is repurposed for mobile? Does it support mobile number registration and not just emails, assuming that people don't always have email addresses? And can users get going with absolutely no training? The relevant content in the South African context was quite important, given that you need to always consider local regulations and context. We need to also consider the level of staff. Are you providing this for cashiers at a store, or is this sales content for top level managers? Contextualization of content was quite important. The other big issue was, does the learning actually improve performance? Historically, unfortunately, in the South African context, the training efforts were really focused on tick box exercises. People came to a training workshop, they signed a register and left without necessarily tracking the impact on job performance and retention and improved ability. And is the solution scalable, especially when you're looking at high volume environments where you're trying to train sales reps around countries? Can it support hundreds or thousands of people? Is there clear accountability in the system? Is the line manager empowered to track what's happening in their teams in real time and prompt and push staff to do stuff? And ultimately, does it make sort of economic sense? Is it the most affordable? Will the digital learning be accredited by the CETAs so that companies can get rebates, et cetera, et cetera? And over time, after using the license platform, it became clear that we can't meet all of these key things that we believe that the customer really wants. And this is what then ultimately drove us to working on our own platform, so that we could finally address all of these things. And I think that's the decision process I go through before deciding, are you buying or building? Can you get all of the things that your customers really need in an existing solution? And if not, then it's probably the right time to build something. In terms of that build or buy conversations, that's what I typically think about. And the other key considerations in this process is the time horizon, digital skills, incentives, and the lean innovation process. So the time horizon was critically important. I think Sandiso alluded to it already. Most companies, executives, or teams are generally incentivized over annual structures, so your annual performance bonus and the things like that. That generally focuses a team to do short-term consulting efforts or immediate revenue generating efforts. And those are directly opposite to a platform approach where you need to build IP. And there's no ways you're going to be building an IP heavy product and turning revenue and results within that year or two horizon. And for me, that's the biggest challenge I think corporates are going to be facing in terms of adjusting that time horizons and the incentives section at the bottom there, whether the skills or the teams are able to be incentivized over the time horizons that are required to provide or build platform businesses. And this incentives thing is a very big thing, because if it's too short term, it will focus the team to deliver short term results and not necessarily the long term results of a platform business. Attracting the right digital skills is also quite a big one in terms of being able to pull in the skills. Often corporates do have existing, I think, IT skills, but very often they're not product development skills where they're developing from a blank piece of paper. I think it's very different when you are managing SAP or Oracle platforms and building a layer on top. The digital skill set is very different, and creating the right culture to attract those skills is the most critical step to start with. And if that culture can't be created, it's unlikely that you'll be able to attract and retain those skills in the long term. So really looking at that agile work environment will be key. And lastly, when you do get going, applying the lean innovation approaches, where you're starting engagements with the customer early, not doing a thing where you sort of hiding the product for 3 years before coming out, defining sort of the hypothesis or assumptions you're really testing in the early stages of the product, and doing design sprints and iterative sprints to get stuff going. And depending on whether the customer hypotheses are proved is when you decide to allocate more budget. This is a very different accounting approach to, an established business where you allocate more budget when something is delivering profits and revenues. In these early stages of a platform business, you kind of need to use this innovation accounting around allocating resources when a customer hypothesis, such as for us could have been a customer hypothesis that people will enjoy learning on their phones. And once you have proven that hypothesis, then you want to allocate more resources. And in that kind of thinking is very different from the kind of decisions we typically make. I'm assuming I'm out of time. I actually can't see the time counter yet. So
yeah.
Cool. I'll tie up there. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Rapelang? Okay, Michael, allowed to talk? Michael, over to you.
Hi, Rapelang. How are you? It's Michael Barnard speaking.
Hi, Michael. How are you doing?
Very well, thanks. Rapelang, just one question. Is the Rekindle platform a true multi-sided platform? Could you elaborate on that?
When you say multi-sided, can you elaborate on what that means to you? I'm not sure I understand the term.
Okay, okay, so your consumer is your learner, right, on the one side. So that's the demand for learning. On the supply side, can anybody go onto your platform, any enterprise or any company, and design the training for any learners on the other side of the coin?
Correct, yes. So
is the platform open on both sides?
Yes, correct. So when we set up a client's environment, we give them the training to be able to do everything themselves. So it can be entirely self-managed. So for example, our client in Botswana, Orange Telecoms, they do their sales and promotion training on it. We chat to them twice a year because really they manage everything themselves and run the content, upload their users, and do all the training independent of us.
Thanks very much.
Sure.
Thank you. Any more questions from the floor? Okay. Lars, you may start.
Great, thanks. Hi guys, let me see if I can also share. There we go. It's sharing? Yeah. Okay, thanks guys, good morning. I think this, I don't know if you guys have seen this one floating around, this slide floating around your social medias, but I thought it was quite relevant to get started. I think today's topic is obviously super relevant in the strange and unprecedented times that we're going through at the moment. Yeah, obviously as the slide, as the meme says, COVID-19, the coronavirus is probably going to speed up digital transformation, going to change the world as we know it. We're already seeing that right now, doing this through a webinar. It's my first doing this way. And I've been using all kind of digital platforms like Zoom and chat functions and whatnot throughout the day, both for work and for personal life. So I definitely think we're going to come out of this. Companies are in this space are probably going to go through a bit of a slump now. We're going to come out of this hopefully a bit stronger and hopefully in a changed world where big corporates, everybody has to really make steps to start transforming and using digital platforms. Cool. So quick introduction. I'm Lars, CEO and founder of PARCO. We started PARCO, what is it now, over 5 years ago, and PARCO is a smart logistics platform. Our mission is to create accessible delivery throughout Africa. One of the big challenges we see in Africa is the fact that 75% of the population lives and works in areas that are not accessible. So what we've done is build that smart logistics platform, and we've connected a network of parcel pickup points onto that to ensure delivery anywhere on the continent. The issues we're trying to solve here are, as I said, access. 75% of the population lives in areas that are not accessible. In South Africa, you can think about obviously townships, but also people that work in big corporate offices, people that work in or live in big housing estates. Those also often don't allow couriers to come in. Small towns, you know, the country is huge. So if you live in a small village or small town, 800 kilometers away from Johannesburg, then that's also not very accessible. A courier, if you ask to a courier will always tell you that now it's not a problem, they will deliver. The problem is that they will obviously deliver, but for a certain cost. So most courier companies would charge an extra 150 Rand surcharge for townships, an extra 200 Rand for a remote area. So it becomes very expensive. And actually in South Africa or in emerging economies, we see that logistics is about 2 times higher than it is in the let's say the first world. And lastly is the service levels. Obviously in South Africa, we all know how the post office is doing. A lot of the courier companies have done an amazing job over the last 5 to 10 years, but 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and we know 5 years ago when we started the business, the service was actually quite bad. And I think it's catching up, but it's still not at the same levels that the rest of the world is. So we see a huge issue and we see a huge problem that a lot of companies have, and that is just to get the parcels in the hands of their consumers. And that's what we're trying to solve at PARCO. So what we've done is we built a platform. This looks quite complicated, but basically what I'm trying to show here in the light blue on the top is all the different channels that sales come through and all the different back-end solutions, the other platforms that big corporates use. So you'll see, you know, sales coming in through e-commerce, through stores, through marketing, marketplaces, direct sales, telesales. All these kind of channels are being used, And then these businesses have all types of platforms that they use. There's an e-commerce platform, obviously, to sell online. They have warehouse management systems, loyalty programs, all kinds of stock and sales management systems as well. So there's a lot of platforms being used, but I think if it comes down to delivery, the challenge is how do you connect all that and how do you make sure that you have one big overview and that you know exactly what's happening. And that's where we come in. So what we do is we are a platform that connects our clients, which are businesses. We in our platform, which is, a tech platform, has different courier companies, different services that you see on the bottom there. We connect through APIs. We have a whole back office of customer service. We connect into different warehousing systems. We connect into, how do you call that? For the cross-border trade, we have that on there as well. So we have everything in our platform to ensure that a big corporate that needs to do deliveries has one one-stop shop to go to. And then what we offer to them and then eventually to their end users, right? It's a so-called B2B2C model, is different services. And I think what makes us unique is that to create that access on top of a normal courier delivery, we actually focus on a pickup point delivery. So we have 2,500 stores throughout the country where we partner up with these stores and we use these stores as parcel pickup points. So in the smallest little towns across the country, we will be able to get a parcel delivered to a small store and then allow somebody to collect from that small store. Just to be clear, we are a platform and not a marketplace. And for me, the difference there is that a marketplace would be where we would, get any courier in the country, any logistics provider in the country to just sign up. And on the other hand, to get any business to sign up, right? So obviously we allow any business to sign up. We welcome all kind of clients, but we are very, very, very careful and very deliberate about which partners we use. So we only have a few selected courier partners that we use, and we determine that service. So in a way, I think that's the biggest difference. If you work with us, you're working with PARCO. We are very transparent about the fact that we don't do the deliveries. We're using different couriers, but the relationship is with PARCO, and we manage and ensure that these couriers and these service providers give you guys the level that you need. And then we have all types of businesses that use us, a lot of big corporates, and the results are there. Just to go in a few, the results obviously increased speeds, increased success rates, decreased times, a huge network, and especially for the click and collect services, we see that a lot of customers that collect parcels also spend in store. So maybe then to go through a few of the challenges. The typical challenge building a platform for any business, I think, is the chicken egg dilemma, right? When we started, obviously we needed companies to work with us, but the company will then ask, so what do you have, right? How do you, how can we see that you, what are you going to offer us? And then if you go to the service providers that you need to help you, they're obviously going to ask you the same question, but then asking where are the volumes? How are you going to make sure that we get what you promise? And I think that's a problem that any platform always has. That's just how you have to start. And eventually we got over that by finding on both sides, finding a good company, a good client. On the one hand, it was Media24 that became the client. On the other hand, it was Caltex, Fresh Stop at Caltex that said, yes, we'll try this with you. And as soon as we got that ball rolling, it kind of just went. So it took us a few kind of months to get that first client and first partner. But from there on, it just kind of took off, and it's been going better ever since. I guess the other challenge we have is, especially if you're doing something like we're doing, where you're focused on big corporates, is convincing big corporates to come on board, right? The long sales cycles. And again, that's why I started with that slide. I'm actually, the whole situation we are in today, the whole COVID problem. I think obviously it's going to be devastating for a lot of companies. And I'm not even talking about the health side, but just the economic impact is going to be devastating. But I do think when we get out of this, which will take a while, digital platforms, people in the digital space, will be stronger. And I think especially in South Africa, where for many years, at least for the last 5-6 years since we've been doing this business, there's always been this question and this discussion around is digital really there yet? And I think a lot of people that we speak to are people on this call, the people that that are the innovation leads at their respective companies, the people that are strategy leads, you know, those are obviously quite big people that are always big advocates and fighting for digital transformation. But I think you can see that typically across these companies, they're a minority, right? And I think now through this crisis and where we're going now is you'll see that a lot of that's going to change, right? I think the innovation, the chief innovation officer or the head of innovation, the head of strategy is probably going to get a huge, very important role in their businesses. And I think you're going to see that they're going to be listened to way more. You know, you can already see that now on the government level, right? Just the way the government has been acting and reacting to everything in the last 2-3 weeks. I think everybody's been super impressed about how that's going, and all of a sudden all the old politics and all the behind the back stuff that we don't really that we kind of know about, that don't really see, doesn't seem to be in place, and you know, we just need to have a solution. And I think the same thing will happen in a lot of businesses. And maybe to end up with just a few opportunities that have come up. So, you know, as you build your platform, you start with one idea. Our idea was to build this network of pickup points and to offer that to e-commerce companies. What we found very, very early on is, you can see it on the few companies I've listed here below, is that actually one of those is a pure e-commerce player. A good story, I mean, something that happened this week is Rain, that kind of completely, Rain and One Day Only, there would be a kind of the same, where they don't have their own network of stores and they use our platform, our pickup point network to do deliveries. But then you have TFG and Clicks that have come on board, and they've kind of just taken our software. So they've really looked at us and said, okay, we like what you guys are doing. We understand it. We don't want to go and build this whole thing ourselves, but we also don't want to, you know, to use your extended platform and to use your branding. So can we do a white label solution? And for us, that's been a good pivot that we made about 2-3 years ago. So on the one hand, we have our pure players like Rain, African Bank, and One Day Only that send out parcels and get the customers to collect, for instance, at a Click store. And on the other side, we have clients like TFG, Clicks, Cape Unimart, many more, where they use our software in-house and as a white labeled solution, you know, use that for the last mile delivery. Cool. I don't know.
Okay. Are there any questions? Thank you, Lars. Are there any questions for Lars? Okay, I'm going to hand over to Gazi.
Cool. Thanks a lot. Good morning, everybody. I'm wondering if this process is as intuitive for all of you, or as it's meant to be. I always find that you know, video conferencing setups like this, some people, either it works very naturally, others it feels very awkward. So if I start sounding awkward, please forgive me. I'm still personally still trying to wrap my head around it, and I hope that what I have to share will be interesting and engaging for you. So without further ado, let me just share the presentation here for you all. It doesn't always. Cool. So sort of similar to where Lars started. You know, the COVID-19 has really changed the world of insurance, and that's where Yalu operates. I'll explain a little bit where within the insurance ecosystem we operate in. But some of the effects of this have been interesting for us because If you look at the traditional insurance world, people either sell through brokers, face-to-face agents, or they sell through call centers. So now suddenly you got COVID-19 and brokers can't see their clients anymore. That is their lifeblood, cut out for them, all right? If you put yourself in the shoes of call centers, you would have seen that President Ramaphosa specifically said that essential financial services are exempt from staying at home during this period. So I'm sure a number of you have noticed, but all call centers in the financial services space are still operating. What many of you might not know is that most of them are operating at 50% capacity. So what's basically happened is that in order to ensure social distancing, there can't be, 100 plus people in the room as they normally are in call centers. And so what they've now, what the financial services companies have typically done, or at least those who rely on call centers, is they've asked half of their force to basically run on a schedule. So one half will come in at 8 a.m. in the morning, and at about 2 p.m. they swap out, and the other half comes in. So it's a very disrupted way of working. It's obviously lesser capacity for them, but that's what social distancing and COVID-19 has meant for call centers. And then if you think of whether you're using face-to-face channels of a broker or call center, a number of fulfillment in financial services is still done in the back office somewhere. So their platforms don't, when they engage with the customer, a product isn't immediately issued to the customer. There still needs to be some back-end process that needs to happen. And so what you find now is that admin back offices can't process sales or servicing requests fast enough because they're now all operating from home. Again, a lot of them don't have laptops, whereas before they're working from a head office with desktops typically. So reduction in capacity has happened there, which therefore means that whether it's insurance purely or financial services in general, they can't actually meet their customer demand anymore, and this has affected them in a very negative way. So it is a relatively interesting thing for us because that is what Yalu was based on. So what is Yalu? This was based on this kind of world where you have to be automated in all shapes and form. So what is Yalu? So we focus on a part of insurance called credit life insurance. So credit life is basically, if you go to, I'm sure there's a few bankers in this audience, so please don't take it too personally. But if someone goes to, say, the Green Bank tomorrow and borrows 100,000 Rand, the Green Bank will typically require them to have what is called a credit life insurance policy for the duration of the debt. And what that does is that in case the person dies, gets disabled, or gets retrenched from their work, which is a very topical thing right now, the policy will settle that loan that they've taken out. So you'll find credit life can be on any type of loan: personal loans, credit cards, student loans, home loans, vehicle loans. And what has happened up until Yalu came to the market is that the insurance policy, the credit life insurance policy, you got from your credit providers. So the Green Bank, to extend this example, the Green Bank would give you the Green Bank's credit life policy. Yet the law allows you to choose your provider of choice. And so we thought we would disrupt the credit life market by creating a standalone credit life product that is not that doesn't get issued to you because we've issued you a form of credit, but that will cover all your forms of debt in one single policy, which currently no one in the market is able to do. But yeah, so that was the intended launch to the market. We thought we could disrupt this, and we had all these weird and heady ideas of all the cool things we were going to be able to do. We then set out to build the tech platform, and I'll explain how the reality of what's played out in the next slide of what our intentions were and where we've actually landed up. what we then did with this idea, we built a platform which is both customer facing and user facing, which basically allows for straight through processing, whether it's sales or after sales. So our customers can take out a policy in 5 minutes, no paperwork, the policy documents are issued, terms and conditions, policies live. We can start doing the debiting process. There is no back office. There is no fulfillment that still needs to happen. It's all automated. And it was an incredibly complicated process to pull off. And we were very fortunate that we had a very strange American who was fresh off the boat, who had arrived in South Africa looking for a new opportunity. And he said, hey, I know technology and I think I can build something like this. And he helped us really build this custom built system that allows us to pull this off. So as I said, whether you are dealing with us on the sales front or an after sales front, it's all automated. Whether it's online, we take the same system that was online, we gave it to our call center agents. They use the exact same system so when they're talking to you on the phone to either service you or sell a policy to you, it's the exact same online system that we actually built, and it just works and we've just tweaked it for a call center. And the same with advisors. We've tested it with a few advisors where they've got an iPad and they take you through a process and they take you through a sale and be able to get a policy and get service. So our process and our system essentially meets the demands of this new weird COVID world that we now find ourselves, and the world we believe will even be, where the changes will be a lot more permanent post as we come out of this crisis. Reality of what's played out for us, when I look at what we intended and where we've landed. And that's really in a few things. So the system we built, we initially wanted to build it by ourselves, and we quickly realized that the resources it required were actually quite excessive. So the platform was ultimately built by a Yalu IT team and a couple of external providers that we worked with to actually plug in some of the capacity constraints that we couldn't meet to get the turnaround time quickly enough to get it done. The challenges we faced in building this were firstly financial. So if you look at the most recently profitable insurance companies, whether it's short-term or long-term insurance in this country, they've all spent north of 300 or 400 million rand to reach break even. Now, when you're a 30-something-year-old trying to convince people to give you 300 or 400 million, the conversation is going to go down very well. So we've had to raise a little bit of capital and be really, really creative in how we actually stretch it and actually build a platform and then actually start marketing the product to customers and getting them onto the platform. So that's been an interesting thing. What's actually played out now in the 2 years that we've been in the market is we've been able to expand our product set using the same platform. So it doesn't only, it can do more than just create life. It can do funeral. We're actually testing funeral right now. And we're also going to be expanding it to regular life insurance. So from a product diversity perspective, the platform is flexible enough to actually add on different types of products. So that's really, really been cool. And we built with that in mind because we didn't see ourselves as purely a create life player. Now, a opportunity we stumbled on that we never expected was what I've kind of called your client prototyping, which basically is we've had a number of financial service providers who said, hey, could you build what you built for yourselves for us? Could you build us a white label product that we could market to our customers with our brand and our brand skin and on our website, but actually everything is Yalu in the back end. So it's our platform. You would only go to the client's or to their client's website, but once you click, everything from then that happens is us. And we've actually we did a couple of prototypes last year. Failed spectacularly, convincing anybody to work with us. And where we are now is we're at the end stage of launching a pilot with one of the biggest companies in the country. And you know, for us, we never viewed ourselves as a platform company. We viewed ourselves as an insurance company initially, but we've had to actually realize that there's multiple ways of tackling the market, of actually monetizing what you've built. And what you've built isn't just a product and process, it's also a system and a way of doing things that can be incredibly cost effective for companies. And you know, and in doing so, we've also realized that we're now getting requests for people to say, I've got an insurance product idea that I have, building an insurance company, getting all the compliance and all the systems in place to do it is just too complicated. Can you do that for us? I just bring you the idea and we share in the revenue share. So that now too has become an opportunity of whereby we basically offer a insurance company out of a box as a solution for those who don't want to go through the incredible amount of pain we had to go through to get to where we are as Yalu. And that in a nutshell is where we are, and I will stop at that point.
All right. Thank you so much, Ngazi. Please feel free to ask questions for Ngazi. I already have questions on the Q&A box, so I'll start with those. But for the attendees, by all means, please do ask questions as we go along. So the first question is for all the panelists. So I think they want to, Sam wants to understand, how do you, the process of ideation and conceptualization. So the ask is that, the thought is that there are lots of things you can digitize and platformize. There's so many features you can put into your platform. So how did you, obviously knowing that, you know, time is a resource, money is a resource, it's not, you know, it's not to infinity, but rather, how do you, given those constraints, how did you select and prioritize what to actually put in your platform from the onset? So I'll let any panelists answer first, and for all of you guys to answer. Yeah.
Look, sure. I think I mentioned in the beginning of my journey that I really did want to have that deeper appreciation of what was important to the customer, which is why I looked quite deeply into what was already in the market and was willing to start with something that was already in the market so that I could engage with customers, deploy with customers immediately, and get real feedback in terms of what they needed. And from that, I was able to get the insights and feedback I needed to know what should be in the platform that we actually build. And that was for me the key thing that we did there to get through that. We still obviously have lots of feature requirements and things that we consider. And what typically sort of tips the scale is if there is a customer need where there will be enough sort of users on it that would justify us putting it forward in the roadmap. Then we could develop that feature based on that customer demand. But yeah, getting in the market as quickly as possible and working with real clients is the only way to know for sure.
And any other panelists want to answer?
Yeah, I think I agree on that one. And I think for us also what was very important too is to just be super practical. And you know, you make mistakes all the time, learn from your mistakes and keep on going. So when I say mistakes, as an example, when we started our platform, we were worried, and still one of the worries that a lot of our clients have is capacity at their stores, of parcel capacity at their stores. So a feature we built in on day one was that we could track that. We didn't have to use that feature for 3-4 years because, you know, you need to do millions and millions of parcels before you start filling up stores and that the capacity becomes a problem. So we solved the problem that was not really a problem at that moment. We could use it later on, luckily, but that was like a small thing we built early on, which was not really needed. So I think be practical about it. Build, you know, solve problems. That's what you're trying to do there, and solve the problem that you have at that moment for your clients, and solve them one by one as time goes, and you know, focus on that.
Ngazi, before you answer this question, I'd like you to answer 2 questions when in your response. The first one is around how long did it take for you to acquire corporates, you know, to get them on board? So I guess the question is around customer acquisition lifecycle, how long that takes, and then you can answer the question around conceptualizing, selecting, and prioritizing features for your platform.
Okay. I wish it was faster, acquiring a corporate client. The conversation that we've been in, that now we're about to do the pilot launch with, has been going on since June last year. I honestly thought it would be a 3-month conversation. I have had to adjust my expectations on that front. So it definitely takes some time. I've, some way smarter and further ahead colleagues of mine that I have said to me, I should be happy with that because it's much quicker than what they experienced when they were doing something similar. So I would say, prepare for at least a year journey on this one, particularly with really large corporates. There's so many players, so many politics. A lot of people want to shine for different reasons, and you just have to somehow work your way through all of that to actually make it work. In terms of features and ideation, so one of the things that I've learned because of this engagement with this company is the more people you have in a room, the slower you move in actually coming up with something that is a minimum viable product. So, when we started Yalu, there were only 3 of us. And the entire idea of what the company would do, what the product would be, how the features would work, the screens that the customers would go through were just 3 people. And I found that now getting in a room with 10 people from this corporate, because everyone has an opinion and everyone wants to be heard. And because you've got that many different types of perspectives, it takes an incredibly long time to actually get everybody to be on the same page. So for me, I would say the first thing you need to do, please just chop as many people out of the equation as possible and only work with 2 or 3 people if you really want to get something quickly that you can actually test. The second thing is on figuring out the features. There was a lot of guesswork. Some features we nailed, and some features we built features that we have never used. So for instance, one of the after sales features that we had built was for customers to be able to see how their debts are reducing and see what their next month's premium were. I thought this was cool. I convinced the team that this would be a brilliant feature. Pretty much no customers used it. We have put them to, we will pull them to use it. No one uses it. So it is a bit of a hit and miss. I think direction we got it right. I think for me, some part of it is a bit of a gut feel. A little bit too though was helped a little bit why we also got it more hits and misses on that one is that we did do a customer search before we went live. We spoke to 100 people. It's not an incredibly large sample size, but we spoke to 100 people. We took them through the process, and there were 2 insights that really jumped at us from that, and we were actually able to implement those prior to going live. So I found that to be quite helpful.
There's a question around monetization. One specifically asks about your first transaction and when you're trying to get your product in people's hands. Did you charge for those fees? And speaking to just in answering that, speak about how you'd monetize your platform as well. Yeah. Anyone can answer. And then Tristan, I see your hand. After they answer this, I'll be on you.
Cool. I think it's very dependent on what kind of platform you build. Our revenue streams are, we get paid per order, so per delivery, and we charge the corporates a licensing fee. Especially on so in our world, everybody pays for a delivery. There's not really an expectation there that that's going to be for free. So I think our example is very simple, very straightforward. But I think to answer the question, I mean, it really depends if you can get that critical mass. I saw somebody else asking, how do you monetize and what do you focus on? And, how do we get more clients was the last question. And, I think you need to determine what is your target market. Is it the business, is it the consumer? And what, if you determine that, you need to get as many as possible. And yes, that is expensive. So the question is there a cost? Yes, there's a cost. And you probably need funding to get there. You probably need to build your MVP and to get as far as you can without funding. But at some point, if you want to scale and you want to really build this across the country, then you'll definitely need to get some funding as well to help scale and get you to that level.
All right. Tristan, ask your question.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, my question's to Inkazi. Inkazi, two questions in this essence. The first is, I'm curious as to how you find the acceptance of clients of your platform, especially with it being in insurtech, and it's a bigger problem usually in fintech with kind of customers just being tech adverse and prefer kind of the old ways of doing things. I'm curious how you've had interactions there. And then the second thing is your interactions with the insurers themselves. I'm curious, so for background, I'm an attorney in insurance law, and I find that a lot of the clients that I interact with when going into insurtech products, so the big insurers when going into insurtech products, seem to be doing so more just to be seen to be in that space than with an actual expectation of it being profitable, or even being of value in some cases. I mean, we have one client now who's actually, they were underwriting for an insurtech product and they've pulled their underwriting policy and no longer want to be involved. So I'm curious how, you know, what the interactions you've had there are. Thank you.
Okay. So in terms of, so I spoke to you guys about a piece of research, customer research we did with 100 people before we went live. The number one insight was, yeah, we like what you're doing, but could you also have a call center? And I was not impressed. I was actually quite angry. I was like, why are we doing this if we're going to end up with a call center? And so I got a little bit depressed. Thankfully, my business partner was far more mature than I was, and she talked me into realizing that actually this is not about how we feel about this, is about actually meeting what the customers are saying. And so reluctantly, we said, okay, let's build this thing to work as a you know, self-service online platform, and use the same platform and give it to a call center agent to actually utilize, so that we're not building multiple platforms, because that's what you find, and that's what I found in when I used to work in corporates. Different platforms for different channels. So this is all one platform for every channel. And that meant our ability to then quickly create a call center was quicker. And it means one development, it means that when we make one set of changes, we make them across channels. And interestingly, outsells online like 7-1. So it wasn't the intention. You go find seconds really well. My sales and the call center, but that hasn't really been the case.
Okay, all right. No, your
Yes.
network was dodgy there for a second, but it came back up and running again.
I'm sorry for that. I wish I could control what goes on in this network. I see it saying your network connection is unstable. Can you guys hear me still?
Yeah, we can hear you. So I want maybe to bring Rapelang in. If the panelists can just maybe explain, firstly, your background, like what you studied, and then two, in finding resources or skill sets in South Africa versus expats or doing something offshore. Did you find the necessary skills onshore to deliver or to build your platform? So it's more a question around your own personal capability and also around, you know, the job, the skills market. Yeah.
Could I just answer the second question that Tristan had asked?
Okay, cool. All right.
So I do think there are some big corporates who are doing this purely for visibility and not because there's something they believe will be profitable. We've been very fortunate because we work with All Mutual, and three of us in the team actually used to be kind of middle management-ish people at All Mutual, and so there's been genuinely a strong need to actually see this thing really become successful, and they've been actually been parts and center of getting us to have the conversations with the corporates that we've been having, because they really want to see it blow up. So that hasn't been the case for us, but we also acknowledge that it's purely because we had a pre-existing relationship with them.
Thank you, Ngazi. So it was a question around skill set personally, and yeah, okay.
Okay, great. I'm conscious of time, so I'm just going to sprint through these. My background is also in technology, so I did a business science, computer science at UCT, and when we started building our own platform. Some colleagues that I'd worked with on previous projects, I brought in. So sort of the senior team is all technical backgrounds essentially. And now we're sort of at, I think 6 people, and half of those are sort of technical skills as that, and a whole network of collaborators and freelancers that we work with on demand, which is a great way to keep the costs down to a large extent. I think there was the question also that linked to, you know, how much does it cost to build a platform business? And one must bear in mind that you're never done. It's not something you're ever going to invest in for 6 months and ever be done, and which is why those building internal skills is going to be important. And if you're young enough, or typically I say if you're under 30 and you want to build a platform business, you should probably learn some code, because it'll help you manage the risk and manage the product a whole lot better and reduce your costs of mistakes in the long term. Yeah.
Lars, please answer the question that you've indicated to answer, and then also just on that, and maybe Lars, if you can touch on the upfront cost that because people want to hear like figures. If you can't disclose that, by all means, please do share.
Sure. So background, not technical. I am from the Netherlands, and I work at Groupon, which was back then one of the fastest growing companies in the world. Not so much anymore. Team, I think talent is always a challenge. Although because I'm Dutch and my co-founder as well, we've been very deliberate about we only wanted South Africans in our team. So we've been very careful for the first 2-3 years with getting anybody on board that's non-South African. We are now at about 35 people, and this year, we'll see what happens now, but the plan is to grow to 75. So looking now a bit, probably also will look a bit more international. Cost for building a platform, guys, it's difficult to say. I think Rabelang said it well. It's never stopped. I mean, we've raised some funds. We're doing pretty reasonable revenues, but a lot of it goes back into the platform. A lot of it goes back into building it. It's never done, right? It's always ongoing. And then maybe last quick one question. Yeah, so do we also do banking or other? Yeah, so we don't do just retail. We help all types of. That's a good question, actually. Typically, people think about e-commerce or retail, but any company that does deliveries, any company that needs to get their orders into the hands of their consumers, we work with. So that includes like telecommunications. Rain is a client of ours. We're talking to all the banks, some of them doing pilots with them, some of them almost live. So healthcare sector, so it's basically anything that needs delivery. Very quickly try to answer all the questions.
Yeah. Gazi, can you take the question around regulation? Because that I know probably because in FS, it probably is a hurdle that you probably overcame. We are out of time, 2 minutes over time. So if those that can stay attending, you're more than welcome to. We're going to just go through all of the questions as for those who can still stay. Yeah. So if you have to leave, thank you for joining. We really, really appreciate it. And yeah, we have another one coming up next week called Leveraging Customer Data. So please do look out for the invitation for that. Thank you so much. Last, Gazi?
Should just be sure, what's the exact query on regulation?
It's around regulatory considerations. Did you have any to worry about, and how did you navigate around them?
I think we had a ton, and we still have a ton. Regulation, until we got a head of legal risk and compliance, that was probably my, after product design, that was my second biggest portfolio. Was thinking through all the regulatory implications. There are so many, and the deeper you dig in, you realize that some things are very clear and some things are incredibly vague. So 2 ways in which we dealt with the vague stuff is, firstly is because All Mutual was working with us, and when also they weren't sure if something was vague, we actually just went straight to the regulator and asked, well, this is the thing we're trying to solve for. This is the proposed solution. Reg is a little bit vague. Does this work? And we presented our options, and regulator is a tricky one. They never want to give you a yes or no in writing, particularly. So you meet them and they say, we think that would be workable. okay. And then we went and launched all that. And so all the questions we had, that was the answer we always got. So, you know, it helped that we really put a lot of time and energy toward it. It helped that we had all mutual helping us puzzle through some of the stuff. And then suddenly my life became so much easier once we got a head of legal, risk and compliance, because she is a machine. I've never met anybody who works as hard as she does. And she just, yeah, she allows me to sleep relatively comfortably at night because, man, she's on top of everything on that side. And so, you know, it's always a concern, but I think we've come quite a long way in working with the regulator and making sure that everything is above board.
Okay. There's a question for PARCO here. PARCO, do you do distributions for? Okay, that's already been answered. Sorry. There was a question for PARCO directly as well around how long it takes you to acquire a corporate in terms of weeks. I know Gazi had like a 1-year spin, and PARCO, if you can just respond to that.
Yeah, I think that's normally, I would say, man, it can be quite long, but I think the timing is not on our side, right? It takes longer because of the corporate red tape you have to go through. So interestingly enough, the evening that President Ramaphosa announced the lockdown, that evening at about 11 o'clock or 10, 11 o'clock, I got a WhatsApp from a prospect that we've been, you know, trying to get on board for a year. And 10 days later, we're live, right? So all of a sudden we could do something in 10 days, what was taking us quite a long time. So, you know, I think it's obviously you have to build the platform, but as soon as you have the platform built and everything, you know, you're live, you're up and running and you're going, it's not that long, right? I think the time that it takes is always on the corporate side. It's much more the red tape and the processes and the legal. I think legal, especially, always going through all those hoops. And I mean, we can talk a whole other hour about how you mitigate that and how you work around that. I mean, there's you know, we think about and talk about that a lot, but I think that's very, very important. If you're going to go and build something that's meant for corporates, you have to really understand how they think, how they work. Even if you don't like the way they work and they think, you have to. That's the reality. You have to kind of adopt, and you have to, yeah, try to do everything you can to make it work for them, right? And and try to work with them and shorten those times as much as you can. How difficult it can be sometimes.
I have a question around finding partners. So I think it's twofold. It's one around identifying your partners, deciding who you're going to partner with, and how do you work with those partners? It's from Senzo Ngiti.
Who's that?
Anyone can take that question.
So I think my general advice with sort of partners is that you do need to identify people that you've worked with in some project, even if it wasn't in a company together or a previous startup. Just because understanding your sort of values and ways of work is going to be critically important, especially as a co-founder or partner, because it's a harder relationship to unwind and divorce than marriage. And you want to be really sure that you want to do that long-term commitment. And the value alignment is really important because some founders are coming in for a short-term timeline view and others have a much longer timeline, and getting common ground in terms of what you both want to achieve is really, really important to ensure you don't have problems later.
Mm-hmm. And then there's a question around.
Can I just add one thing to that, and it's super short? And I just think get a co-founder. That's my only tip. I think doing this on your own is, I think you know, if you can find somebody. I mean, I have a co-founder, so I don't know how it would have been alone, but it's, you know, it's just so nice to have somebody else. If you have to do this all on your own and you have like the whole weight of the whole business on your own, I think that's just it's different. And also just all the stats, all the research show that companies with co-founders, 2 or 3, are, you know, more investable, doing better, all those kind of things. So I would definitely advise, if you can, try to get a co-founder.
Okay, there's a question from a startup, and it's around the business model canvas. So this is probably for you guys like 5 years back. So just try and dig through that database of yours in your head. Around, does it help using a business model canvas, just working your way around it, improving the viability and the feasibility of your concept? From Buhle.
Look, I think it's helpful to use tools like that to help you understand what you know and what you don't know. But it really is sort of the beginning stages, and it's an important step to take because that will show you the kind of research that you might still have to do. But don't spend too long on the business planning and thinking stage, and really think about how you get a basic product out that allows you to start engaging with customers, or packaging a range of tools that there are online. I think people often underestimate how much stuff is online that you can package as a minimum viable product to get going so that you can engage with real customers. That's the best way to improve and learn. Otherwise, you're really sort of sitting in your own imagination and head.
There's just one last question from Tristan. What issues have you guys been encountering throughout this lockdown within your business? And then Any responses?
I don't think that there's operationally we're sort of all right because we've been positioned to work remotely for a while. What is tricky is that our customers are more traditional in their approach, and not being able to sort of have as many sales or client meetings is a hindrance. But I think slowly people are progressing to online channels for having serious discussions. And I think that's a cultural thing in South Africa. It's like serious meetings had to be face-to-face before. And now you're trying to do those online, and it's taking time for that to happen. But I think in the long term, it's definitely a big boost for any digital solutions, because people are definitely seeing that you need to be able to provide and render your services as any company fully online, so that you are resistant or still viable in situations like a lockdown.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We've covered all things monetization, getting your first customer, the customer acquisition life cycle, how long it can be, like even 12 months. We've covered a lot throughout this session. I want to thank everyone that has attended. We really, really appreciate it. We hope you learned a lot. There is a survey that you can populate post the session that we've availed. Please do fill it in, help us improve, come up with better topics in future. We thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next week at our Leveraging Customer Data conversation. Thank you so much. Bye.